Hi, everyone. Good evening. I know you might have been expecting Matt Radford, but surprise, you're actually stuck with me today. My name's Mackenzie. I'm the product marketing manager at Roofr, and I'm super excited to be here tonight to introduce Liz, who is the founder and CEO of Business 411. She needs no introduction, but I've had the pleasure of actually attending some of Liz's Business 411 sessions and been able to see like firsthand the really tangible business advice roofing contractors have walked away with. Your manuals are fantastic. So I'm super excited to introduce Liz. Um, can you just give our viewers a little bit of an overview about yourself and what you do at Business 411?
Yeah, so thank you so much for the intro. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to do this webinar with the Roof Art team. So shout out to you guys. I really enjoy all the tools that you've released for many contractors to improve the industry. So myself, I've been in the industry for 9 years. I started off on the tech side myself and roof measurements. I did that for 5 years and focused on technology training and systems for roofing contractors. And then, in 2019, I quit my job and started Business 411. It was a huge glaring gap at all of the needs that contractors had. And thankfully, I was able to roll up my sleeve, get my hands dirty, and build out operations departments with a lot of my clients. Been doing that now for we're go fifth year, going into our 5th year in business. And yeah, so everything from marketing manuals to basic information that a contractor needs to know, to what their reps need to know, marketing materials, designs, all of it.
Yeah. Oh, and honestly, your manuals are just so fantastic. Seeing the roofers be so excited about them is really cool to see firsthand. Um, and you've had a background in the roofing business, which is amazing. So, why did you specifically decide to help roofing contractors with Business 411?
Yeah, because I was already working in the roofing industry, I had a lot of firsthand experience with training sales reps and employees. And so I really became passionate about the industry. When I first got into it, I was always like the only woman at the roofing events and trade shows. Like 2015 World of Roofing versus 2024 is like two different planets. So back in 2015, I would go to the trade shows and events, and there was like very little technology out there. There's very few women in the industry, and everybody around me was twice my age. Granted, I was only 18, so understandably. But I just felt like there was so much potential in this industry, and I liked it. I just liked learning it, and it became something that was just very natural to me.
Oh yeah, that's awesome, and it's definitely something that we see a lot of as well, where there could be a lot of intimidation around software and technology and automations, and even marketing and business operations can be such an intimidating subject for roofing businesses. So what you guys are doing is so important. Um, and I mean, we could just dive right into leaning on some of that experience. What has been some of the most common pain points that you help roofing businesses solve, like right off the bat, like number one, first thing they run into?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. The most glaring one is obviously a lack of training in the industry. And this becomes like some people feel like there's too much training out there, but I disagree. I don't think there's enough basic and operational and educational content that's practical in the industry. There's a lot of theoretical things, and
Mhm.
there's also a lot of misinformation. But I do think that there's some core principles when you're getting into the industry that you should know. And so I think that's the first thing we do is just help them get. All of the time I would work with one of my clients, they'll say, "This was everything I already had on my head, but I've never seen it on paper." So that's just a practical way that we help our clients solve basic problems in the industry that shouldn't even exist in 2024, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, even just knowing where to start can be so intimidating. The more you Google, the more information, and it just can exasperate the problems a lot of the time. So sometimes common sense isn't common sense until someone says it to you, and you're like, I already knew that. Um, and then can you pinpoint like maybe some of those like top three hurdles that roofing companies encounter when they're actually when they've gotten started, you've had the conversation, and now they're going to start setting up some of those operations and those trainings?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that we've seen on the operations side. There's obviously in our industries the lack of organization and structure, just because there hasn't been enough advancements. So where I
Mhm.
typically like to start when helping someone get organized or decide what kind of program or what are they going to do is what is the biggest pain point that you're having, which is typically organization of some type. So it's hard to scale or it's hard to grow your business or what's the next best decision to make when you don't know and things are not organized. So typically starting off with organization and solving those problems will give us a clearer perspective of what's happening in the business, and also it gives you the chance to look at what you're really doing well.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if you've been in business for 20 years, 10 years, 2 days. There's something that is very different about each business owner, that if they put more of that into the business, it would help them stand out and more importantly, work with their ideal clients.
That's awesome. That's a really interesting perspective. I think people can always focus on like what am I doing wrong? What do I need to fix? And sometimes focusing on what they're doing really well can be just as impactful. I love that. It's awesome. And speaking of which, can you tell us about some companies that have gone through your training and implemented those processes, and some of like the breakthroughs that they've made? I know sometimes it can be easy to learn from other companies.
Yeah. So what's really cool is I started my programs doing one-on-one and traveling all over the country. And there were so many times where I would go and help a CEO who, honestly, at the end of the session, they would end up in tears. Not because I'm providing some like out of this world solution. It's because they had so many things in their head and they had never really been able to get it organized on paper.
Hmm.
And when I figured out that that was what I could help them do, and I brought it to a class setting, it increased the volume of people that we've been able to help. Now we have over 100 and plus 100 plus 5-star reviews on our page about positive experiences. But you know, some of the ones that stick out the most, there was recently a father, son, and manager team. Their company's called Neil and Son, who came to our business. Their fourth to our one of our classes, fourth year in business, really just trying to get things set up properly, trying to figure out what roles they needed to do. And they were really plateaued at that 4 million mark. They've implemented all of the processes that I've designed. They attended every single class. I have 3 different programs. They've gone through all of them. We redid their brand, redid their
Wow.
website, like everything we've worked with them, and they're on pace now to do 8 million this year. So
Wow.
they doubled their business, and obviously there's things that we provide. There's people in our classes who do not maximize the information that they're provided the same way. So I believe that the people that see the value in the information that we provide and maximize it can have substantial results. And so that's probably one of the ones that has impressed me the most, and I know they're going to go very, very far.
Yeah, that's so cool. And we see the same thing. Like you get in what you put, or you get out what you put in. So it's really, really motivating when someone does want to put in that time and effort. That's really cool. Can you give us like a quick overview of sort of like what that process looks like when you start working with a roofing company, and how somebody can actually go through your training effectively?
Yeah. So even though roofing is roofing, there's so many different types of roofing companies. For example, one of my roofing clients here in South Florida versus one of my clients in Texas versus one of my clients in Minnesota, they're all different and their businesses can have different needs. One can be seasonal, one can be more focused on storm restoration. And here in Florida, we have very strict building codes.
Hmm.
So the first step is always to figure out what's the need of that specific business. I'm very fortunate that I've worked with so many different roofing companies where I really understand on a practical, on a process, and on a structure perspective, retail restoration or storm restoration, and understand not just roofing, but also siding, exteriors, gutters, how to work as a GC, how to manage multiple trades, only because I've studied the actual industry side of it outside of
Hmm.
just sales and business. So
Hmm.
once we have an understanding of where they're at based off of their business model, the next step is where do you want to be? and then figuring out what are the problems that are going to stop you from achieving that. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of times it's not doubling down on what is working. So we try to put in processes in place and basic information that's going to help them troubleshoot the issues that they're having, double down on what's working for them, expedite those that growth and that hurdle, because when you do what you're when you focus on what you're the best at and fill in the gaps, you're able to get to that next level a lot quicker. And so it just constantly, that's what it looks like, because we've gone from everything from 0 to $25 million a year with building businesses. We already know the hurdles to overcome. And again, it's just that experience of working with thousands of roofers that it gives me a pretty unbiased perspective of not, I haven't seen it work just one way for one company. I've seen
Mhm.
1,000 different ways that it's worked for over 1,000 different companies, and I've been able to work with them. So we're close to working now with 3,000 roofing companies just on their operations and training.
Wow. I mean, that's so cool that there's 3,000 companies that are prioritizing that and seeing the value in it. And I think that's the thing that really sets you guys apart is it's not just generic business advice. Like you're in there, it's tangible, you've seen it, you can prove it. Super cool. That also brings us to the webinar that you're actually going to be hosting with Nick tomorrow. I think it's like 10 o'clock Pacific Standard.
Yeah,
Maybe 1
Eastern.
o'clock Eastern. Awesome. I'm in PST. But you're going to be, yeah, digging into that roofing operations and solving that business bottleneck, which is super important. I think you'll be covering ways to communicate between teams and improving that communication, which is so important because that really improves efficiency. Can you simplify and break down how better communication can directly lead to higher profits for businesses?
Absolutely. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. Again, since I have a big understanding of the production side of the industry, and it's something that I'm very passionate. I studied. I understand where the drop offs in communication from sales to operations to pre production can occur, and
Mhm.
how to properly train a salesperson to put profits in every single estimate. So we always make sure that it doesn't matter what kind of job they're quoting, the job falls within profit margin. And then the entire team is well equipped to make sure that there's a budget to build the job. So, one of the things that I did was I created a pre production process to get sales, operations, and installers all on the same page. That way, there's not a disconnect across departments. And that really happens quite often in our industry. So, everything from the contract process to how it gets done in a handoff meeting between sales to production and how things should get organized, the checklist, there has to be checks and balances for everything, holding the sales rep accountable for their responsibilities, like taking proper photos, accurate documentation, making sure that the customer is signing all legally binding contracts, like things that are extremely important that cannot get skipped over, to how a job is brought in, what are the customer communication points, how do we have to talk to them about, who's putting together the material order, how do we handle change orders, to like the most technical quality assurance processes. So sounds very boring for a lot of people, but this is the kind of thing that gets me excited.
I can hear it.
Is like, yes, you guys are talking my language now, we're talking about production.
Yeah.
It's funny because that's also something that I've seen lacking in the industry when it comes to education, and that's one of the reasons why it's a big focus of our operations class is production management and building out that department.
Yeah. I mean, even the fact that you can name all of these different processes and it can just sound so overwhelming is like it just highlights the absolute need for the processes, the checks and balances. Snaps when you said it. It's so critical, and that's how you can really just like automate and save tons of time by just implementing these systems. Get
Mhm,
standardization and repeatable. I love it.
mhm.
Um, you also touched on this earlier, and I think you're going to dive more into it tomorrow. But you talked about setting clear roles and accountability within your teams. And just can you give us a sneak peek of how you think that defining these roles can really like transform a roofing business into that well-oiled, standardized machine?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things is whenever people bring new people into the industry, let's say, one of my roofing clients, he's trying to hire new sales reps, but he doesn't have a standardized role. And the training programs mainly like jump in with me in the truck, watch a couple of these training videos from these guys on YouTube, or watch this video training program that I purchased. It's going to teach you some of the sales basics. Like, that's typically the extent of what someone coming into the industry on sales is experiencing. And where that really reflects the most is on the homeowner perspective. That's why
Hmm.
we have such a bad market conception from homeowners, is they don't trust contractors because they're dealing with sales reps who are uneducated. So what typically happen is the sales reps fails, the business owner gets burned, has to come in and solve problems. Whereas what we're looking at is, how do we create a solid foundation for the sales rep to be successful? How do we teach the business owner to find the right people and align them with their mission, their core values, and the way they want to do business to create profitable jobs for the business in a way that's scalable, and teach the sales rep and empower them how to use free ways to market and use paid ways to market. So everything is about creating scalable systems. It doesn't matter if you're talking about sales, doesn't matter if you're talking about operations or installation. So it really is building just a comprehensive program where people know what to do from A to Z in every single role. The same thing for your admin. A lot of times people don't realize that when the person answers the phone, that's the beginning of your sales process, not when they're going to do the inspection. The sales process begins, even when they're looking at your brand and checking you guys out online. But the first point of contact when that person answers that phone, that's where we build the momentum, and that's where we sell them on the appointment to increase the show rate of people actually getting to the appointment, to get both
Hmm.
decision makers at that appointment. So I could really talk about this all day because I'm very
I
passionate.
love it. I keep going.
So,
Yeah.
so it really is just so important on how people should know their roles. The same thing for two very important roles that are honestly like very underprepared typically in the industry is sales managers and production managers. A lot of times they're just thrown in to solve problems without any processes, without any expectations, and then the sales manager might not perform to where the business owner wants, and now the business owner's like, that was a bad sales manager. Now they don't trust themselves to hire someone, and now they want to start doing it again. Whereas there wasn't enough preparation for that role. There wasn't The person didn't have the ability to execute in that role because they were not prepared. So it's just, if you prepare things and you can hold people accountable to execute, you're also going to see when they're not performing in a shorter amount of time. You're going to waste less time, you're going to waste less money, and you're going to be able to invest your time and your money into what works for your business and who's the best people to align with your team.
Absolutely. And it's like a flywheel, right? Like the more processes you have, the more efficient you can be, the faster they're going to scale, the faster they're going to grow, as opposed to spending all your time checking in on their work,
Yeah.
listening to what they're saying. Having that standardization is huge, and it really like does just become a well-oiled machine. I think you nailed it. That's like it's music to my ears. I could hear you talk about it all day. Awesome. So I guess like we talked about the ideal process and creating sort of like that perfect process, which is obviously like one thing, and then implementing it is a totally different thing. And in reality, that can actually be quite tough.
Yeah.
Can you give us some insider tips or strategies, maybe that you're going to be sharing tomorrow? Wink, wink. That will help business owners really just like make that dream a reality, those dream processes.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do is I write my SOP and process manuals using this awesome method I learned years ago from Tony Robbins. It's called the RPM. What are the results I want? What is the purpose behind this? And what is the massive action I need to take? It's very simple, and I write my processes in that format. The results, I always make my objective. The purpose is why it needs to get done, why it's important, what can go wrong if this isn't done properly, and the massive action, the map of how I'm going to do it, is a checklist. And anytime there's a problem in the business and you need to solve it, you can literally just make what was the objective, how you solved it, why was it important, and a checklist. And this is a small way to just get started on creating solutions. Is just by documenting the problems you're already solving on a daily basis can make a world of a difference. So I think that's an easy way for everyone to get started. And it's also something that I teach people when they come to our classes, because I believe that if you know how to not only follow the process we've designed, but also to plan and to prepare, you'll be more able and readily to execute on those things and plan your own processes and expand on them.
Yeah, absolutely. You've made it so digestible, like little baby steps, and then you can work your way up. And I think that's like so important is the digestibility of it. I'm like, how can I implement that in my day to day? You also touched on the your training event. I know that the webinar sort of condenses some of the parts of your 3-day event. What's one key takeaway that attendees can walk away with that would immediately impact their business?
For the 2 hour event or the 3 day class?
The 3-day class. I want
Oh,
to hear it.
it's
Hard to
the
do one, I know.
it's the company structure. Honestly, that is the biggest takeaway. We spend a significant amount of time developing the company structure, laying out the foundation of where you're at right now. Like, even if the reality of the situation is you're doing everything, how are you going to get out of that? And so creating an actionable plan on who you're going to bring on, when you can afford to bring them on, how much money should you have saved, how much money should you be ready to invest, like knowing how to build out that structure and walking away with a plan of action, not just my information. When I do my classes, I don't just give information and then you just walk away. You're like, oh, how do I implement this?
Yeah.
Everything I do is designed to implement.
Oh, I can't say it enough. I've seen your manuals. Really, and that's the thing that's so important is just, like we were talking about, generic advice is one thing, but those actionable pieces of um, like processes that you can go and you can implement, like fill in the blank
Yeah.
insights are just like huge. That's awesome. Let's finish it off with some of maybe some emerging trends that you think might be coming out in terms of business operations, like job execution, team dynamics. Things are shifting with automations and software. Talk to us. How can we think companies stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, so I'll start off with a team dynamic side, because that's one of the biggest shifts in the interest in the industry that's happening, with, having no longer 1099 positions and having to have more
Mhm.
W2. It's being enforced in several states, and it's going to be not too long before it's implemented, across the country. And understanding the difference of how to have W2 employees for sales is a key to success for companies who are going to take advantage of this curve that's going to be happening in the years to come. And they're going to
Mhm.
take control in the marketplace of having some of the best salespeople. So it's a trend now, and people are wanting to do it in some areas. In other states, they're being required to
Mhm.
do it. But pretty soon it's going to be enforced, and that trend is going to make it open to hiring people outside of the industry. If you're using a base salary plus commission structure or a versus structure, again, some things that we talk about in our classes, but depending on your compensation model, being able to attract that top talent and keep them in. So there's a lot of things that it comes to being able to bring people outside of the industry that I think is going to help the industry evolve within itself, because having people who are educated in different ways and have a different value and a different perspective to add to the industry is going to create massive change. So that's something I'm interested to see how it's going to play out. But even, for example, a company like mine that didn't even exist a few years ago, I'm pretty sure in years to come there will be a lot of different companies who do different types of trainings, and the industry is going to continue to evolve. And I'm excited to be part of that change, and excited to continue to build our school.
Yeah, that's really cool. It really obviously touches back on what we've talked about already about like the roles and responsibilities in that training. And something that's interesting is that can be a really big competitive differentiator for roofing companies. Like when you talk about top talent, people want to work where they can succeed and excel. So you want to be able to stand out from your competitors and attract that top talent, move that flywheel. Awesome. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for making the time for us today, considering you're going to be joining us again tomorrow.
Mhm.
Really appreciate it. Always love hearing what you have to say. Loved the conversation about the operations. And for anybody who hasn't already signed up, make sure you join Liz and I think like 350 other roofing businesses tomorrow for her masterclass.
It is insane how many people have registered. You guys do not want to miss out. I don't know what happened, but oh my goodness, we've just had I've never had like this many attendees on a webinar registered. So I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
It's so cool. It's such a great way to connect and learn from others too. Just hear from other people, see the questions that they're asking. Yeah, we're all excited at Roofr as well.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. See you soon.